All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the 22-Minute Walk Leadership Podcast. This week, we are featuring Andy Thomas, who is a professional snowmobile racer, lives in Star Valley, and he is with us here today. So, Andy, tell us a little bit about yourself and also how you got into snowmobiling.
What's up, guys? 27 years old. I've lived in Wyoming pretty much my whole life, born and raised here. So feels cool doing this with a bunch of fellow Wyoming people. So really cool. I got into snowmobiling when I was young. I grew up in Star Valley, so lots of snow over here. You either skied or snowboarded or you snowmobiled, and I did a little bit of both. And snowmobiling is what stole my heart. So it kind of took me into a pretty cool career and lifestyle, and pretty blessed for all of that.
And maybe for people who aren't as familiar with snowmobiling or what hill climb racing looks like, can you kind of describe like what the objective is and what kind of skills you need to be able to compete in something like the Snow King hill climb?
Yeah, so it's basically like downhill mountain biking, except you're going uphill through gates. You have designated turns that you have to make and go through the bottom at a certain spot and through the top at a certain spot. And it's one at a time. It's a timed event, so you're trying to make it from the bottom to the top as fast as possible. And yeah, we have some really fast snowmobiles that get going pretty high speeds, and we also climb some really steep, gnarly hills. Like a lot of you have probably seen Snow King, and you know how steep that can be. So yeah, essentially it's just a timed race from bottom to top through a bunch of flags.
And the sort of potential scenarios are A, you go really fast and you win. B, maybe you make it to the top and you don't win. Or C, if you fall off the snowmobile, what happens then?
Yeah, hopefully your body's okay, but most of the time your snowmobile is not. A lot of these races, the snowmobile goes down by itself if you end up wrecking and losing it. So that's the biggest consequence. There are some body injuries here and there, but most of the time we just mess up our snowmobiles, and that can be pretty expensive and a lot of work. So
Yeah. And so that's like a pretty tangible way. Like you have this goal of winning, and then maybe you succeed, which I think you've won some pretty big races or some big hill climbs. But then sometimes you don't. And maybe it's pretty obvious either through not winning or your snowmobile going tumbling down the mountain. How do you do you like that pressure and that high stakes environment? Or is it hard to navigate that? How do you kind of approach that really visible success versus failure?
I think just being okay with either outcome going into it helps a lot, because if you're too focused on winning, then a lot of times you'll mess up. You just have to trust that you've put in the work and you deserve to be there, and what you do will be good enough. Just like in life, things are not going to go as planned, and sometimes they're going to go better than planned. So don't take too much of a drought when things go bad, and don't rely too much on the successes. Just enjoy what you're doing. That's kind of how I try to go after it. So it is frustrating when you mess up. It is frustrating when it doesn't go like you think it should, but that's just how it is. That's why we always come back, and for the thrill of maybe winning again and again and again. So
Well, that's really a perfect segue to what you wanted to write about for this challenge, which was thinking about what makes you you. And maybe tell us just a little bit about how you've kind of walked that journey yourself, or how you think about coming back to doing the things that bring you joy and satisfaction and those types of things, and what you would recommend for other people too.
so I think all too often in life we get kind of lost on who we are and what we want to be and who we want to be. And so I think it's important to take time to reflect on that, and remember who you are, who you want to be, and understand that if that doesn't line up with society or with what someone else wants, and even your significant other or your kids or your best friend, if you're different, that's okay. Um, I think it's important to remember what line we want to walk, who we want to be, and take time for ourselves to give ourselves that grace of being anybody that we want to be, and it's okay. Any direction we go, it's all good.
And what do you do in kind of your daily life to revisit that, or kind of do maybe a check of, am I aligned with my values, and am I being who I want to be, and am I doing the things that make me me?
Yeah, so I do have a few things that can help ground me. I call it like grounding myself. I feel like I can get so floated out of where I really want to be and who I am, and I'm getting better at noticing that if I start to notice a lot of anxious feelings or just like I'm not living the life that I want, I have this journal that I keep, and I actually have a list of who I want to be, like my intention for the day. I try to read that every day, and kind of reminds me of my goals, where I'm headed for that day, like what kind of person I want to be to other people. Um, yeah, and just who I am. So I know like working out, riding snowmobiles, working hard, those kind of things make me happy. So I try to remind myself that it's okay to take time to do those things.
I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in having this big goal, whether it's a snowmobile success or a new job or your family looking a certain way or doing certain things. But it's always like the little steps that build into those successes. And so when you do set a big goal, like maybe winning the Jackson Hill Climb, how do you sort of reverse engineer that into smaller goals that you can do on that daily basis where you are being true to who you want to be, so that when you get to the top of that podium, you're proud of the person standing there. It's not just, something that happened by chance.
Yeah, I think that's super important is when you get to the top, like you get to that podium, are you proud of who you are, and like and do you remember how you got there, or was it all just a blur because you were so worried about getting to that spot? And I think we've all heard that happiness is not a destination, and we need to remember that it's all a process. We need to enjoy our process, and setting these massive goals is what everybody says to do. And I think that's so important to set a massive goal, but don't let that massive goal stop you from taking action. I know it seems like a huge goal, but one little step after one little step is how you're going to achieve that goal. Even if it doesn't seem like you're making that big of a difference, if you're just working towards it, it's all going to stack up win after win, day after day, a little bit after a little bit. It stacks up, and you will achieve your goals by the end if you keep moving.
That's awesome. I feel like I've read and heard a lot of theories of like, if you want to go to the gym more, keep your workout bag in your car. If you want to eat healthy, like buy vegetables at the grocery store, like all those little things that sort of, instead of making it two steps to make a progress towards your goal, make everything just be one step away. So it sounds like that's something you embody and try to live on a daily basis.
Yeah, don't be so hard on don't life is so simple, and us as humans we're so good at complicating it. So get good at time management. Time management is an easy thing to do. And you're just taking care of yourself. It's okay to take care of yourself. I think we get so caught up in just being busy and always going, going, going. But in the middle of all that, take time for yourself, figure out who you are, who you want to be, and then make a little step day after day to be that.
So your own journey through snowmobiling has not been without some setbacks and some lessons along the way, whether it's injury or maybe your snowmobile not performing how you wanted it to, or maybe some mental blocks that you've had to kind of navigate and overcome. What do you do when you're in that kind of place of frustration, or, reality is not aligning with the expectations you had set or the goals you had set? How do you sort of pick yourself up or make a game plan to move out of that place of either disappointment or feeling stuck or whatever that might be?
Definitely setbacks, and it seems like there can be little setbacks in every day. But I have gone through a back injury. I have wrecked snowmobiles, and going through all of that is when I learned that you just have to keep moving. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. When you're in the middle of a setback, it's so easy to be so cloudy and so worried about every little thing. But I think just remembering to control what you can control. Do a little bit at a time. Don't worry about doing so much at one time. That's one thing I struggle with, is I always want to do so much right now. But doing a little bit at a time, eventually you'll pull out of that hole, and it'll all keep moving the way you want it to.
So as folks are heading out on their walk next week, and they'll have kind of 22 minutes by themselves to just let their mind wander and process and reflect, and they're kind of thinking through the end of this year, Is there anything you would encourage them to think about or maybe consider in that time that they've carved out for themselves?
Yeah, I would just be really intentional about being alone with yourself. I don't know when the I mean, I am alone with myself more often because I'm aware of it, but I never used to be, and I think it's important to give yourself that time. Um, when you look in the mirror, do you recognize the person looking back at you? If you don't, then like take this 20 minutes to really get to know yourself and think about what you want. Be selfish with this time. Don't have any distractions. Be intentional, and I think that you'll find that this can bring you a lot of happiness. I know I've done the 22-minute walk a few times myself, and I find that it can be a really good way to start my day or end my day, or just when I'm feeling anxious or kind of not grounded, I can go do this. Just be alone. 22 minutes isn't very long. I can go be alone, and it helps me out a ton. So I hope you guys really enjoy this and you can learn something about yourself.
Awesome. And maybe just last question, you actually sort of were the impetus for this challenge being created because you had read the book, The 12-Hour Walk, and recommended it to me. And so I'm curious, what did you like about that book, and would you recommend it to other people if they're kind of looking for maybe even a next step on this exploration journey?
Yes, I would recommend this book to anybody. I love it. I go through it all the time. It's right by my bed all the time now. It's big for me. But the coolest thing for me is that Colin O'Brady, he seems like a normal human. Like he's not some superhero. And I think a lot of times we think that someone might have something special and that's why they can achieve what they have achieved. But he's a normal guy. He's gone through a lot of challenges that have made him stronger, but he's not scared to try. And I think that's really a really important point to make. Like, don't be scared to try whatever it is. It's not too big, not too small.
Awesome. Okay, well, if I understand correctly, you are maybe are going to go ride your snowmobile in this new snow that just fell overnight.
Yep, I am on my way.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking some time to share your perspective, and thanks for being part of this 22-minute walk challenge as well.
Yeah, of course.
The 22-Minute Leadership Wyoming podcast series is brought to you by Hilltop Bank in Central Wyoming. Thank you for your support.